Back in the day, tobacco in China was banned. And so the alternative was to sniff snuff. And they would use this part of their hand to sniff. When you see these miniature snuff bottles, they are extremely fine quality. I mean, there's different qualities again. They're made of porcelain, cinnabar lacquer, to carved stones like nephrite, tourmaline, jade, to wood, organic materials, ivory, and you can name it, even glass. And jewellery is something that we cherish, we hold, we wear. It is literally touching your skin.
Welcome to this new episode, and today I am here with Isabella. How are you, Isabella?
Hello, I'm very good.
Very nice. So Isabella is an expert in gems and jewelry, as well as being my girlfriend. So it's going to be a fun interview today, talking about gems and jewelry particularly, okay? So first of all, Isabella, what is your story in life?
Well, firstly, I was born and raised in London, but my family are from Hong Kong. I was always been attracted to the arts. So, whether it was piano, to ballet, to, creativity, painting and so forth, I was always very hands-on. My mum immediately saw that and knew instantly that her daughter was going to be in the creative industries no matter what. And I was very supported from a very young age from my parents, which I was very thankful. And, from a very young age, I remember just spending most of my days in the art room, even after school, like hours and hours. I would be literally associated with the art room, So I knew for a fact, I did, I really wanted to become an artist. And I was all for, going to sign up for art school. But my mother at the time was a bit skeptical. You had to do a foundation course before you can even go to university. So it's added costs, added extra years just to become an artist. And it wasn't, in her eyes, perhaps worthwhile. And looking back now, I just, I'm glad that perhaps maybe that wasn't the best route, because I was a very slow painter myself, very traditional in many ways. I didn't really want to experiment so much. I was very safe. And but I tried to explore that a little bit. Going to Hong Kong and actually learning how to paint in the Chinese traditional style, which is more free-flowing, freehand. Anyway, after that chapter in arts, I actually studied art history, so that was much more fitting towards me, because I love talking to creative people. Artists love exploring painting techniques and how major masters like Van Gogh or Monet or Cézanne actually devise and create these beautiful artworks. So after that, I decided to really throw myself into the art world, which is not very easy. Working in museums, galleries, and then working for several international auction houses in London.
Okay, so auction houses, these are these organizations that sell high-priced paintings, art of different type to the highest bidder, like the Christie's, yes. The Sotheby's, is that right?
Yes. So it's a very exciting environment because it's very fast-paced. You're in this glamorous setting. People are bidding thousands, millions, and for Picassos and sports cars and amazing jewellery. And for me, it was more a great place to be surrounded by beautiful, fine craftsmanship and objects. And because I loved museums from a very young age, an auction house was great because it was literally a museum where you can touch things. And because I'm generally a very tactile person, you know, looking at an amazing Renaissance painting right in front of you, or like an 18th century, you know, piece of furniture, like you are literally able to see and touch and understand and do research and really kind of get into the nitty-gritties of how these things were made and all the beautiful inspiration and you know, that goes behind them. And so for me, that was just a great training ground. And I've always wanted to become an expert or a specialist into something, whether it was modern British art or Chinese works of art. But then I realized I've always loved jewellery, and everything that I was attracted to, you know, if it was a piece of furniture, it maybe be the marquetry or the mother of pearl inlay, or if it was a beautiful antique carving or vase, it would be the material, you know, that it was carved in or made from. And so I realized, I kind of connected the dots, thinking, wow, okay, everything I liked has this material component. I love gemstones, and I've always been, you know, my mother would put a beautiful amethyst or a carved cicada on my desk, you know, and it kind of symbolized some sort of meaning, like, oh, this would give you lots of wisdom, or makes you work harder, or like gives you some inspiration, or, you know, helps you with your work and academic.
And so you made a transition from art to gemstones. Before we go into that more specifically, I'd like to learn a little bit more about what was your experience of growing up in London?
Growing up in London, it's, you know, the thing is that London is a very, very different city compared to the rest of the UK, right? It's very special and unique in the sense that it's so multicultural. You know, you get people on all walks of life, different diverse backgrounds. So I never really felt out of place at all, you know. I went to a convent school, very Catholic convent school, actually very multicultural. I had friends who are all different races, and so I never felt out of place. I would say, you know, one of the things that I found difficult was, obviously I'm a native English speaker and English is my first language, but, you know, when I'm in the art world, people immediately think I should be, I should know about the Chinese art market, or I should know about the Chinese market. And because I didn't speak the language, it was a bit of a barrier. Actually, it didn't work in my favor, not knowing the language.
Mandarin, could you speak Cantonese?
So I speak Cantonese, so in Hong Kong we speak Cantonese, but I don't, you know, is my second language. And I don't read or write fluently, unfortunately. So, so when it comes to working environment, English is yeah.
And I resonate with that too, because, you know, as you know, I spent 15 years in London as well, working, and as an Italian, my English wasn't so great as it is now, obviously, and I had amazing opportunities from day one. So London was, to me, a very inclusive, very welcoming city.
Absolutely,
despite me being a foreigner and not knowing the culture, and the English culture, of course, is very beautiful and very world-class in many ways, but a little bit different from the Italian culture. We are a lot more direct, you know, we are more formal in certain ways. But, you know, it's interesting that you say that you had a pretty good experience as well in London. I think London is really unique in that sense. But also I'm interested a little bit in learning about your roots in Hong Kong. Of course, you never really lived there for any meaningful time, is that right?
I don't actually have much affinity to Hong Kong, to be honest. I've only been there like less than 10 times in my life. I have lots of relatives there. Obviously, both my parents are from there, and both of them moved to the UK at a very, very young age. Also my grandparents as well. So, you know, every time we would go to Hong Kong for family holidays, but, you know, even if I go now, it's, you know, I'm still a tourist. I don't really know my bearings so much, and so yeah, I mean, it's I think because I also, when I did my traveling to Beijing, because I had this after working in auction, I decided that, you know, let me just tackle the language thing and see how much I can pick up of Mandarin. And that was quite insightful for me, because I was teaching English, learning Mandarin, and China is such a big country, right? And I never, ever stepped foot in China. And so it struck me how different it is, because Beijing is in the north. The food is very, very different. It felt so exotic to me. Because the food is so different, the culture is so different, the language is so different, the people, the way they express themselves is very different, and it's very insightful. And I think people forget that in big countries like America, China, you know, like they're so big and so diverse. It's probably the same in Italy. Like each province or each region has its own unique qualities.
Yeah, this is true with any kind of subject in life, right? Like big slogans and you know, like manufactured sentences or definitions are very, very limiting in some ways. But you know, it's great what you're saying, and let's get into the gems and the jewelry. Of course, because you know, I've been with you for almost 6 years now. I know a little bit about gems and jewelry, although it is not one of my biggest sort of, you know, like passions in life. Quite the opposite, to be honest. I don't wear any sort of male jewelry, or you know, and I cannot really. I can tell you what are the major stones, you know.
I'm glad. I'm glad you picked up on something.
But yeah, that's as far as I go. But okay, first of all, let's start with the gems. Okay, why Bangkok, and why do you work in Bangkok particularly?
I never actually thought I would be in Bangkok, frankly. Like, it's just, I don't have any connections there, and now I'm there. So it's amazing how the world, you know, and your life takes you to different places. So for gemstones, I mean, for those who probably don't know, Thailand is actually a major gemstone capital in the whole of Asia. And pretty much all colored gemstones go through Thailand, because Thailand is a very unique place. They have the know-how, they have the technique and the knowledge for certain treatments, like heat treatment in gemstones. And this was actually, you know, developed in Thailand, and now it's pretty much a treatment that is prevalent everywhere. And so Thailand has the expertise in that, and so a lot of the cutting and the heat treatment takes place in Thailand, and also the craftsmanship to make jewellery. Okay,
so when you say the cutting, people mine stones in the mines, obviously, and these are rough stones, and then the first sort of level of processing is when the stone gets cut. Is that right? Into like pretty shapes. So can you explain what happens there?
Yes, so a lot of the gemstones come from you know, within the vicinity, maybe from Myanmar, from Cambodia, but actually a lot of the colored gemstones right now are coming from Africa. So a lot of the rough will get you know, transported to Thailand, and they, you know, initially maybe go through a sorting process before they are going to be cut. And there are different stages in the cutting procedures.
Okay. And then, depending on the quality of the stone, they get heated or not. I mean, if it's a very high quality stone, it doesn't get heated, is that right?
Of course, because the reason for heat treatment is to enhance the color and the clarity of a stone. So this is great for lower quality material. So therefore, traders will be able to sell it for, you know, better margins, because it's more beautiful, right? With the heat treatment.
And then, so can you tell us what are the differences between like precious and semi-precious, and also what are the main stones that you can find here, particularly the expensive ones?
So I tend to, I mean, I don't really like to categorize the difference between precious and semi-precious. I mean, this is just a classification that, you know, back in the day gemologists used to help them. But, you know, categorically, precious stones are supposed to be the big three stones, so rubies, sapphires, and emeralds, and of course, diamonds. And semi-precious is anything that are not the big three or big four. So, but you know, we're seeing a lot of other stones kind of which used to have the status of semi-precious, like spinel, are now becoming very, very precious in many ways, very expensive, very difficult to find, very good quality pieces. And so, you know, that's why when we have these sort of hierarchies, they don't really fit today.
Okay, I understand. And so you have rubies. Is that ruby the most expensive, or one of the most expensive category of gems?
Yes, absolutely. I would say in many ways coloured gemstones is very much underappreciated in many ways. I think diamonds, of course, you know, everyone knows about diamonds. They kind of dominate the whole, they dominate everything. So, but I think people always never realise that coloured gemstones are in many ways much more rarer than diamonds.
Okay.
Especially rubies, because in my lifetime, I have never seen an exceptional, beautiful ruby. I've seen some really gorgeous rubies, but not to the point where I'm like, whoa.
So they're very, very rare.
To get the quality, the high, finest quality with little, you know, inclusions, eye clean, loop clean, you know, it's just very, very, very difficult to find. Whereas exceptional qualities for sapphires and emeralds, you do get those in auctions, you know, not a lot, but they come to auction more often than a stunning red ruby.
Okay.
So actually per, you know, over the years, in terms of auction records, per carat, rubies have fetched the highest.
So why do you love jewelry so much, and what makes a piece of jewelry really remarkable?
When I, you know, during my master's, I also researched on Chinese snuff bottles. And
Chinese what?
Snuff bottles. And Chinese snuff bottles are miniature works of art, small little containers made of a vast array of materials. And back in the day, tobacco in China was banned. And so the alternative was to sniff snuff. And they would use this part of their hand to sniff.
Okay.
And it was said to cure colds. It was supposed to, you know, be good for their health and well-being. And the emperor lavished and poured so much, you know, money, time, and craftsmen and created these guilds in China to serve as need to produce these wonderful snuff bottles. And, you know, as the emperor started using them, wearing them, everyone started following the trend. And so when you see these miniature snuff bottles, they are extremely fine quality. I mean, there's different qualities again. They're made of porcelain, cinnabar lacquer, to, you know, carved stones like nephrite, tourmaline, jade, to wood, organic materials, ivory, and you can name it, even glass. So, and just the innovation of the carving, they're not just normal little containers. They may carve them into beautiful aubergines or fish, which all had auspicious symbolism, or it had a certain carving, and even like agate, which is a beautiful stone, is from the quartz family. They have these beautiful markings, and it was just ingenious at the time, because if you look at them, the craftsman actually uses these inclusions of the stone to create a beautiful landscape or an image. Snuff bottles were very much held very closely to the person. And so they would use it all the time. There was a function to it. For me, jewellery, now I realise why I love jewellery. And through that, you know, again, I see everything being very much interconnected. And jewellery is something that we cherish, we hold, we wear. It is literally touching your skin. So the relationship between your piece of jewellery is so much more intimate than just looking at a beautiful vase or painting. You know, when I was young, I used to just spend hours looking at a painting up close. And my brother used to have to drag me from the painting because it was an embarrassment in many ways. Okay. So I used to love looking at things on a microscopic level. I was even considering art conservation to look at the X-rays behind a painting and you know, see the paint layers and so forth. So jewellery, when you look at a piece of jewellery or a gemstone under a microscope, it is another microcosm. It is another world. And that got me very excited. Mm-hmm. And I just love to zone out, to just see these beautiful things. Like these are it's art made by nature.
So because of that, then you started writing for international magazines, yeah? I think your Bangkok experience started working with Henry, is that right? So can you tell us how did you get a job in Hong Kong, in Bangkok?
You know, because I didn't know anyone, I literally just inquired. I wanted initially to be a junior gemologist or some lab, you know, gemologist, and realized very soon that that was really not my thing. It was very technical, and you know, it's nice to spend some time in the microscope, but perhaps maybe not constantly, for me anyway. I'm much more creative as a person. And so, yes, I was working for an institution, gemological institution, and then afterwards I was working for a jewellery manufacturer. Okay. And, you know, I think my natural predisposition, coming from an artistic background, is looking at jewellery design. And I've always loved beautiful design. You know, I also worked in an antique jeweller's when I was working also as an apprentice when I was working for an auction, just to kind of train the eye on like different periods, different techniques, and understanding how design evolved over time. And so when I look at jewellery now, because of that background, I have it kind of informs my way of looking at contemporary jewellery and how I can kind of spot what is a good piece of jewellery versus not a good piece of jewellery. Okay,
so in Bangkok you worked there for a couple of years, and then COVID happened and you turned into a freelance journalist, is that right? So that's what you're doing now?
Yes, and so I've always written on the side when I was in Bangkok. I had my blog, so my blog is Art Meets Jewellery, mm-hmm. and it's kind of the combination of the arts and the jewellery together, and that kind of started my journey. And so yeah, I write for mostly jewellery, gems publications, mostly B2B, a couple of B2C as well. And literally covering the whole supply chain. So from the mining to the retail to jewellery trends, designers, you know, what prices are going for in terms of emeralds, rubies and so forth. So I really kind of try and have a holistic perspective of the industry, because that is what I've always been interested in, you know. Like when I was in London, it was great, you know, but it was very retail focused market. You know, you can either be in sales or become a jewellery designer or work in an auction pretty much. And I was kind of longing for kind of understanding how this market actually really worked. You know, there's so many, you know, gemstones go through so many hands before it gets to London, Paris, Milan and US. So I wanted to get an idea on the upstream supply chain. So going to Bangkok was you know, great for that, because I got to see some of the mines. I got to kind of really delve into opportunities where I don't think I would have had in London.
Yeah, for sure. Bangkok also is a thriving city in many ways, not just for gemstones, but yes. Okay, so, and now you've been in Koh Phangan since 2020, right? So why do you like the island so much, and what are your plans?
So again, I never thought I would live on such a tropical, beautiful island. I feel very blessed, especially just before COVID. I mean, before that, I was obviously coming on and off to Koh Phangan regularly. But there's something, obviously, because, you know, I'm with you, so it was a great introduction to the island, and kind of giving me an insight into an alternative lifestyle, which I would say maybe 6 years ago, I also went through a difficult situation in my life where I was seeking some sort of transformation. I was trying to understand why life perhaps didn't go my way or how I expected. And so that's when I decided to go more inwards, you know, dabbling into loads of different new hobbies and so forth, and that's how I got into yoga. But then, you know, yoga for me, you know, I realized it was more than asana, more than just the postural aspect. It was, for me, what really the magic happened was when I got to really connect to myself, you know, going into shavasana, going into a pose for a very long time, connecting with the breath, you know, understanding how the energy works. And so, yeah, for me, Koh Phangan is a great place because there's so many like-minded people who are interested in spirituality, interested in self-personal growth. They all, you know, all have different walks of life. It's a very international community. For me, it's like London, but on an island. And so I found something, yeah, it's another transition in my life, and I found something that I just love. I just love it. I love the workshops. I love the vibe. It's very laid back. People are creative.
But yeah, it's been fun, I think, you know, having a chat with you, given the fact that you're my girlfriend, and we were planning to do this since a while, and now we said, let's do it, you know. I don't know if you're interested in gems and jewellery, but I know that in the community many people are. You know.
Absolutely, and I think, you know, although I work in more of like more of a formal corporate, in some ways, industry, I totally resonate with the love of crystals and gemstones on the island. You know, people are much into crystal healing, lithotherapy. It's something that I've always, from a very young age, since I've always been very intuitive, being attracted to stones. It's not just the beauty. There's something about it that...
Some intrinsic value, maybe.
Yeah, a lot of these things last for a lifetime.
And more.
And more. And they will live past you.
Well, Isabella, thank you very much for sharing. It's been kind of fun, you know, interviewing you, obviously. It's something that we plan to do for a while, and welcome, okay?
Thank you.